Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Just hang tight for just another couple minutes and we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you. Once again, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We're going to go ahead and get started in just another minute, so please hang tight. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Casey Murphy, and I am ACT's Director of Programs and Events. I want to thank you for joining us today for ACT's February webinar event entitled Looking Good, Branding and Websites for TDM Programs. Before we hear from our presenters this afternoon, I wanted to quickly take care of a few housekeeping items. First, all attendees are on mute during this webinar. If you have a question or have a problem hearing us, please type it in the chat box located in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. I will do my best to answer your questions as the webinar gets going. Secondly, we will have a Q&A at the end of the webinar, but please feel free to type in your questions as we go in the question and answer box, again at the bottom of your screen. Please also identify who the question is for when typing in your questions. Finally, this session is being recorded and I will have the recording up on the ACT website within 24 hours after the presentation ends. Now I'd like to go ahead and introduce David Strauss, ACT's Executive Director, to give an update on what ACT is currently working on. David?
Thank you, Casey. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank all of you that have joined us for today's webinar. These webinars provide a great benefit to members for continued learning right from your desk, which we are always looking to find new ways of getting you the education and best practices as easy as possible. As the premier association for TDM professionals, our goal is to build a strong community of individuals and organizations working to advance and implement TDM at their work sites and within their communities. ACT is your organization for the latest information and best practices in TDM. We have some exciting new programs and services that will begin to be introduced this year, including the first certification for TDM professionals and a new online member engagement platform. It's exciting to report that starting last week and ending this weekend, we have a group of 35 members that are participating in the beta exam for TDM CP certification. This is the final step in the development of the TDM CP exam. Stay tuned for news in the coming weeks announcing how to participate in the first public exam that will be scheduled for June, when you'll have the opportunity to be a part of the inaugural class of TDM CP recipients. If you're not yet a member, I invite you to join your colleagues and become a part of our community. ACT membership is a fabulous investment in your professional development. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to update everyone on some of the other happenings at ACT. 2 weeks ago, we hit a major milestone in our efforts to raise the profile of TDM within federal policy, when Representative Dan Lipinski sent out a Dear Colleague letter to all members of the House requesting their support as co-sponsors of ACT's More Through TDM legislation. This is an important piece of legislation for the industry as we look to codify TDM within federal code and establish new programs and policies to advance TDM. Registration is also now open for our Emerging Mobility Summit in Pittsburgh, April 28th to 29th. This immersive event encourages all attendees to join in on the conversations taking place. We have some great discussion topics, and I encourage you to register soon as we anticipate this event to sell out. Registration is also open for ACT's International Conference in Denver, August 2nd to 5th. Award nominations is currently open, so if you have a great program that you would like to be recognized for, be sure to nominate it. It's now my pleasure to introduce our monthly webinar on another great topic, looking good, branding and websites for TDM programs. As we all know, you only have one chance to make a first impression. Today, our speakers will share how to create a brand that resonates and a website with online tools that engage your audience. Using examples from large and small TDM programs, today's webinar will walk you through the process of developing a design. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. I'll introduce all three of them right at the beginning. First, we have Kate Johnson, who has served as a program manager for the city of Bellevue, Washington for over 13 years, leading the city's commute trip reduction and transportation demand management programs. Prior to her time with the city of Bellevue, Kate has held a variety of roles in the transportation planning industry, including capital programming, grant acquisition, and transit planning. We also have Kira Smith, who is an associate transportation planner for the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. Kira supports transportation programs and plans that advance transit, active transportation, and emerging mobility initiatives for the Lake Tahoe region. She's one lucky professional. Since joining TRPA in 2017, Kira has helped to develop monitoring and funding programs for transit, conduct demand analysis, and advance the region's transportation demand management strategies through a new commuter program and a widespread marketing campaign. Kira also serves as an advisory board member with the Lake Tahoe Bicycle Coalition, advocating for safe bicycle infrastructure and encouraging biking as a means of transportation. And to kick off today's webinar, we have Anna Gore, a programs associate with Alta Planning and Design, where she's dedicated to connecting people to the active and shared transportation options available in their communities. Through her work with Alta, she has managed behavior change programs, coordinated outreach campaigns, and provided TDM services in communities around the country. She graduated from the University of Georgia with a Master's of Environmental Planning and Design, and is the league cycling instructor with the League of American Bicyclists. She has been with Alta since 2018 and has nearly a decade of experience with active transportation programs. It's now my pleasure to welcome Anna Gore to kick off the webinar.
Great, thank you, David and Casey. Again, my name is Anna Gore, and I'm a Programs Associate at Alta Planning and Design, and I am thrilled to be presenting today with Kira Smith from the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and Kate Johnson from Choose Your Way Bellevue. Today, we plan to talk about our experiences with branding and website design for programs that we have worked on. And our goal is really to leave you with ideas and information to reach your own audiences and to better support community and stakeholder buy-in in your own work. We hope that we can help you make your brand and transportation option information clear and memorable for your audiences as well. So first, I would like to talk to you about Get There Oregon. I served as the project manager of a consultant team that supported the Oregon Department of Transportation on this project. And the project included the transition of a large existing statewide program to a new technology and the development of a new name and visual identity for the program. Before I go much further, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Get There Oregon is a rideshare matching and trip planning tool made available by the Oregon Department of Transportation. The tool provides ODOT and Oregon's transportation options partners around the state with a single system that they can promote to connect the public to a wider range of transportation options. With Get There, the public can do things like find a carpool match or join or start a van pool, find transit options, or locate a bike share station, all using the same platform. So what changed in 2019? Well, a lot. Basically, we had another chance to make a first impression. After years of running the program under the name Drive Less Connect on a platform called Rideshare Online, the Oregon Department of Transportation released an RFP for rideshare service providers. You can see the old logo for the program here on the left, and below it is the logo for our annual challenge, which is actually run on the same platform. So in 2019, Right Amigos was selected as the vendor, and ODOT invested in the development of a new visual identity for the program. To give you a sense of how the statewide program works, in Oregon, there is a designated transportation option partner acting as the regional administrator of the Get There platform, and there's an organization responsible for every county in the state. So the map that you see here is also on the homepage of Get There, the website, and it illustrates all the jurisdictions that the 8 regional partners cover. So the geographic area can vary. For instance, the east side of Oregon has a lower population density than the rest of the state. So while it looks like a huge area to cover, the population served may be similar to counties that include really urban areas like Portland. So ODOT also assembled a working group made up of folks from these regional partners to advise on vendor selection, naming, and the visual identity development. And ODOT also, even before selecting a vendor, had assembled a consultant team to assist with the project rollout. So the team included Alta, the organization that I work with, and we were responsible for the administration and management of the platform. We helped to transfer the data between platforms and provided technical training and support to those regional administrators. We also led the development of the new website and oversaw the visual identity work and communications about the platform. We worked with Brink Communications, who is the main sub-consultant leading the naming and development of the visual identity for Get There. They also led on the communication strategy that we used around promoting it during the launch of the program. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Brink's visual identity process. They used a 5-step process as seen here, and I can say that this is a fairly standard process. Sometimes different names are used for the different steps, but I can say that Alta uses a similar approach to branding and visual identity projects as well. So the first 2 steps included research and interviews that were intended to inform one of the first big decisions that needed to be made, and that was determining our target audience. While the tool was intended to provide a service to the general public, it's really unrealistic to develop a visual identity intended to resonate with everyone in the state of Oregon. So Brink's work helped us to hone in on target audiences before working on the naming and the visual identity. So who was our target audience? Well, based on their research, Brink identified 4 target groups and outlined attributes for each one of them, and that was used to develop the visual identity and all future communications for Get There. You'll see the 4 broad categories on your screen in front of you, and to give you a sense of what attributes we think about when we think about these groups. For the super sharers, we're thinking of people who are very friendly, sociable, well-connected. They may enjoy getting to know each other and feel connections as a member of a community on Get There. The next group, do-gooders, we think of as being very idealistic, and their driving force may be just wanting to make the world a better place. And then we thought about connectors. So the connectors group are folks who may enjoy carpooling, but while friendly competition may help them do it more often. So things like the challenge may be encouraging for connectors who may want to participate in that. And lastly, our colleagues. So that's getting at the folks that would be using the platform for commuting. So we know for this group, we wanted to really empower them that the platform is easy to use and understand, and that carpooling is an easy behavior change that can fit right into their lifestyle. So with these audiences in mind, this on your screen is the new logo that was created. A few things in regards to the design, you can see that we included the reference to an arrow that really inspires forward motion, and the orange points that can be interpreted as destinations with a connection between them. We looked at a lot of different color palettes, and the palette that was chosen includes a dark teal, a teal, and an orange as the highlight in the logo. And then in terms of typefaces, we used the primary typeface of Cellier Book and Bold, and then a free Google font as well, Poppins, was identified. The free font was really key because being a statewide program, we really needed the TO partners all around the state to be able to use the logo and brand easily. So the free option just meant that they didn't have to purchase any other licenses in order to use some of the brand guidelines. What we have found that we really love about this logo is that it's very flexible. The logo was actually initially designed without the word Oregon, but several months after the launch of Get There, Southwest Washington State decided to transition to Ride Amigos and use the Get There name and visual identity for the program as well. So we were thrilled, and to support that, we actually added the word Oregon to our logo just to differentiate our website from theirs. So the logo does have a lot of versatility. You can see below it, there's the version of the logo that promotes the challenge that we use when the challenge is active. But it has, it supports a lot of add-ons. So Southwest Washington can add their name under Get There, Oregon's there, and the challenge are some examples. The name itself, Get There, has been incorporated into taglines for Valley Vanpool, who is a large vanpool provider in the state. So they actually use the tagline Get There Better Together in their work as well. So once the visual identity was complete, that's when we really dug into the development of the new website. And for that process, we used a 4-step approach. So the first 2 steps really had to do with content development. We had a head start since the audience and the tone and the key messages were all determined during the visual identity stage. And then we just worked to confirm the goals, features, and content priorities for the website. So it's good to get all of that in order and have your content priorities before digging into the actual copy. So once we had that approved, we started drafting the website copy. And we had ODOT and Brink Communications review that. Once it was confirmed, we were able to then, we did support all, or the site is supported in Spanish as well. So we had the copy translated into Spanish by a translation vendor. For interface design, we mocked up the homepage and just the key subpages of the site only. So our graphics team uses Adobe XD for this, which has some interactive elements, but isn't a fully functional site. The reason we do it that way is to work out the design details before working on the full site. And then once those designs are approved, we can use the sub-page designs throughout the rest of the site. And then lastly was the beta testing phase. So with the approved content in hand and the approved design in hand, our developers began to work on the fully functioning site. And we again had the Oregon Department of Transportation and Brink review the work to help us work out any design and functionality issues before the website launched. And this is what it looks like. This is just a snapshot of the homepage of Get There as it exists today. So a few things I'd like to just say about this is that as TDM providers, I think we all struggle with having a lot to communicate. And it's important not to overwhelm people. So as part of this process, we just made the assumption that by the time people landed on our webpage, they had a basic understanding of what they were looking for. So we weren't trying to sell or promote the tool just to connect people to its key features, the most important of which was the carpool matching feature. So that's why we have the Oregon destination entries front and center on the home page. And when folks go to that and enter a starting and destination, it bumps right over to the Ride Amigos tools so they can start to explore their options. Another thing I'd like to point out on the site is that we kept the menu structure really simple with just a few menus and not a whole lot of nesting of materials. So we also have a call out section, so where you see the commute tracker and then the notification about getting help logging your trips, that can be changed out and is changed out throughout the year. Like for instance, when the challenge is active, that's where that's featured. And we also chose not to provide resources by mode on this website. We did provide links to all the regional partners with the map that you saw earlier, so that if people who come to this website need support regionally, they can go and get that mode-specific support with the regional partner. So lastly, just wanted to talk about the launch. Get There launched on July 1st, 2019, and we really softly promoted it until the challenge the following October. This worked out really well and gave us a chance to work out kinks from the data transfer to supporting the TOs on their TRIA partners on their training. And when the big push came in October with the Get There challenge, we felt ready. So if I were to leave you with a few takeaways from my experience with this, the first would be that clear focus is really key. We chose to highlight carpooling because that's what the tool does best, but it can actually do a lot more. The next is to just clearly define your target audience. So think through like what's the main thing you're offering and who would most value it. And then think about a soft launch. It can help you. Preparation is really key to a first impression. So having that gave us time to work out our kinks and make things go more smoothly. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Kira Smith to tell you a bit about linking Tahoe and the Commute Tahoe program.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. So as Anna mentioned, my name is Kira Smith. I am a transportation planner with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. And I'll be talking today about developing our TDM brand, Linking Tahoe, and some of the work that we have done to leverage that brand and build up our programming. Just get this presenting. Okay, so I first wanted to give everybody a little bit of context about Lake Tahoe in case you're not familiar with our region. Lake Tahoe is a resort destination. It's a recreation playground for western states in both the winter and the summer. People come to Tahoe to ski, play at the lake, and hike. Our full-time resident population is stable at only about 55,000 people, but as our neighboring regions like Sacramento, Reno, and San Francisco continue to grow, we are seeing millions of visitors every year, and those numbers are only increasing. And because of our visitation, we have a very different approach to TDM and travel management. We have to consider the impacts of our millions of visitors, and we have the challenging task of targeting behavior change in visitors. Also worth mentioning that Lake Tahoe is also a bi-state region split between Nevada and California with 5 different counties and an incorporated city. So collaboration when we're talking about branding and new programs is really key to our success here. So we kicked off the branding for our TDM program with a workshop back in December of 2017. We hosted a TDM workshop with Federal Highways, and some of the attendees included stakeholders from hotels, lodging, government agencies, transportation providers, recreation providers, and major employers. Some of the major outcomes from that workshop were the general need for a universal Tahoe brand and also a regional travel app. So you can see some of the many different brands we have. There are so many different brands at Lake Tahoe depending on the jurisdiction that you're in. So we knew that when we were thinking about developing our own TDM specific brand, we needed to be careful about that and create something that was complementary to some of our existing brands, and also create a location that would streamline all the information being disseminated from all of these different organizations. So using the outcomes from the workshop, we set out to create a new TDM brand for the lake that would bring all the travel information together under a single roof in a fun and creative way, and that would be geared primarily towards targeting our visitors and our recreation travelers. So thus was born Linking Tahoe. We partnered with Alta, Anna's team at Alta, to develop a new TDM brand for the Lake Tahoe region in coordination with some of the stakeholders who were present at our workshop. We decided on the name Linking Tahoe, specifically because we have been using that moniker in many of our regional plans for years. And so we have name recognition among locals, and our locals at least automatically associate that name with transportation. As part of our brand redevelopment, we decided to redesign an existing website. We had a Linking Tahoe website already that really just housed our transportation plans, and so we wanted to use that name and redesign the website to target our visitors and get people aware of the different travel options that are available in Tahoe. And so we recognized early on that transportation is often a very stressful topic for a lot of people, especially when people are planning a vacation. So we wanted our website to make traveling look fun, exciting, and easy. And we wanted ultimately to create a one-stop shop website to streamline all the other transportation information at Lake Tahoe. So you can see this is kind of a snapshot of the Getting Around page, but the home page has that header bar that includes our brand and then is organized primarily by getting here and getting around travel options. And we think that that is actually really useful for visitors, and we're seeing a lot of visitors are using the website. The Getting Here tab is the most viewed tab, and particularly information about airport shuttles. So in addition to redesigning our website, we also worked with Alta to design some brochures. So we have summer and winter versions of the brochure, as you can see in the left picture. And the brochures are tailored to travel options around the different season because getting around is really variable depending on the weather. And so once our website was live, we presented the new website and the brochures to stakeholder groups and other community groups to get the word out. We also met with local TMAs to hand off the brochures for distribution through their contacts and their members. And really, the brochures were meant to drive people to the website. So you'll see this map on the right-hand side is a snapshot from the inside of the brochure. It's kind of a high-level summary of all the different travel options that are available, and it's really trying to push people to the website to then link out to more information about that. So once we had all the brochures in hand, TRPA staff personally distributed thousands of them to hotels, recreation sites, visitor centers, and major employment centers. And the reason that we did that was that it gave us the opportunity to explain the program personally to concierges and ticketers and to encourage them to use Linking Tahoe as a resource for their employees and guests. And then we've been following up with phone calls to ask for feedback. And so far we've had a lot of really positive feedback since the website first launched in the summer of 2018. So building on our Linking Tahoe TDM brand, we moved into phase 2 of our TDM program. And for phase 2 of our brand development and TDM programming, we shifted our focus to commuters. So our goal with Commute Tahoe was to build on the Linking Tahoe brand and to develop something that was geared more towards local employers and commuters. Also worth mentioning, TRPA also has an employer trip reduction ordinance that is listed in our regional code of ordinances, and that ordinance for us was really outdated and ineffective, and we didn't have any way to monitor whether employees were actually adhering to the requirements set forth in the ordinance. So we wanted this program to be a way for us to track participating employers and to monitor the progress over time, as well as to drum up interest in actually participating. So using kind of our mission statement and keeping the style consistent with Linking Tahoe, we developed the Commute Tahoe Program Guide to be used as a primary resource for employers who choose to participate in our program. The guide walks employers through steps to creating and implementing an employer trip reduction program, all the way from identifying somebody to head the program through to measuring and evaluating. And the guide is also pushing employers to our Linking Tahoe website for more information. And then they also have, we built out a portal on the website where they have access to tools and can register, and I'll get to that in a second. But I also wanted to mention, as part of the development of this guide and this program, we built in some incentives for employers. We added a Commute Tahoe certification that is pretty much just a certification for any employer that participates in our program, and that is really just recognition for their business for any future employers. It looks good to visitors also. And then we also added a Best in Basin award, which is an existing TRPA program that recognizes projects that demonstrate exceptional planning, implementation, and compatibility with Tahoe's natural environment and communities. And so we added a commuter category for this program. This is a snapshot of our employer portal that I mentioned we built as part of our Commute Tahoe program. We built the portal located under the For Employers tab of the Linking Tahoe website, as you can see at the top. And so employers, when they log onto this site, they register for an individual account, and then that takes them to this dashboard. And from the dashboard, they have access to electronic surveys, which is partly how we monitor and track progress over time. They also have access to some of the print materials. They can download the program guide. They can look at options for setting up a commuter challenge. And then they also have a unique company link for employee transportation surveys, so they can use that link to send out surveys to their employees to find out what their employees want in a program. And we think that this is a really useful resource for employers to find out what their employees need and also to access a bunch of different tools and resources. But beyond that, it's also a way for us to monitor employer participation and track progress over time so that our employer trip reduction ordinance is actually useful. And the point of this was really just to build everything into that one Linking Tahoe brand. So some next steps for our program, our TDM program, we are hoping to begin a more robust marketing campaign for Linking Tahoe, really targeting our neighboring regions. So for our visitors, we really do have just that one chance to make a first impression, and sometimes that is the only chance we will ever get. So we will be strategizing to figure out how best to target some of those drive-up markets. We're also considering building a regional travel planning tool that would be integrated into linkingtahoe.com, or maybe white labeling an app of some sort with our brand. And then for Commute Tahoe, right now we are scheduling some one-on-one meetings with our partner agencies, our hotels, and our major employers to get people signed up on our employer portal. And right now we're taking the approach of kind of taking it slowly and building confidence in our program. And then we'll be using feedback to kind of update our code or make changes to our website as needed. And then just generally, we're really continuing to build out our TDM programs. We're relatively new in having a TDM program, and so we're trying to build confidence in it, build in budgets, and try to get the word out as much as possible through marketing. And we're also just constantly reevaluating and updating our website and materials to make sure that they are useful and are actually encouraging behavior change, because that is the ultimate goal in all of this. So that is it for me. I'll be happy to take questions during the Q&A session, but for now, I'm very happy to turn it over to Kate Johnson with the City of Bellevue to talk about Choose Your Way Bellevue.
Thanks, Kira. Again, hello everyone. I'm Kate Johnson with the City of Bellevue, Washington's TDM program, and our program is called Choose Your Way Bellevue. I'm going to talk about overcoming challenges and embracing opportunities to improve our TDM program with a new logo and redesigned website, which was all launched in the spring of 2019. Next slide. So by way of background, Bellevue is just across Lake Washington from Seattle, and we have approximately 145,000 residents and 150,000 workers. So we're a major regional jobs center. And Choose Your Way Bellevue is our travel options brand and informational website with sub-programs for businesses and for rewards for individual travelers through trip logging. And the program was developed in 2007. So the program and website were over a decade old when we decided that we needed to do an update. But we still liked the program name because our name emphasizes the positive and that you can choose a new mode and that it's not about what you cannot do. But you can see from our old logo here that our visual identity had a somewhat dated and heavy look, as well as dated icons and fonts. So we decided to keep the name, but that the brand's look and feel needed to be freshened. Next slide. So background on the website and the need for that to be updated. It definitely needed to be streamlined and modernized. On the right is an image of the old website, and you can see that it is very wordy and intricate. And interestingly, this didn't seem that unusual at the time that it was developed, but as we all know, websites have become much more sleek since then. But in spite of the wordiness to it, we felt that the underlying content had actually improved over time. So we decided to retain the basic underlying content, the what of what we were presenting, which is a comprehensive one-stop shop for transportation options, but to streamline the structure and the copy itself on the site. Next slide. So we got started on the project, and we retained, again, Anna's team from Alta Planning and Design for both the brand and the website elements. And the first phase was the logo and brand refresh. And the first steps of that phase involved some research. So Alta created a voluntary survey that was sent out to our existing program newsletter list and reviewed previous focus group research that our program had done, and then facilitated a partner workshop for the city and partners who worked on the program. And through these efforts, we were able to pinpoint principles of our program, including that positive vibe about choice that I described before, as well as the identity of our city. Next slide. So this slide shows the results of our identity exercise. And sorry, it's a little hard to read, but my intent was to show you the gist of this step. And on the right, you can see that there are some contrasting adjectives that are apparent. An example is modern versus classic, and this is possibly reflective of the differences between our daytime and our nighttime populations. However, the most prevalent words, as shown on the left, were friendly, professional, modern, and beautiful. So we kept these in mind as we moved forward, and our city's name, Bellevue, means beautiful view, and we are surrounded by mountains, trees, and water. Next slide. So the next step was initial logo concepts developed by Alta, and on the left you can see the first round options, and these options captured various mode and program aspects among them, but no one logo captured everything. On the right was the second round, and that brought in more of the beautiful view aspect, and some transportation element with a roadway, but it didn't bring in the multiple travel options, but really just had the roadway aspect. Next slide. So for later rounds, Alta combined the trees in the mountains and travel modes. And at this point, I also conducted an informal staff survey among my colleagues at the office to get first impressions of the rightmost logo. And these were people not as close to our program as us on the project team, and I asked them what they thought this logo depicted without telling them about our overall project. And the most common thing I got back was an HOV lane to the mountains. So that is interesting, and it indicated that our overall multiple travel option modes in Bellevue for getting around, that emphasis didn't really come through, and it was valuable to get this outside perspective. Next slide. So we knew that we needed to still make some changes, and that what we were seeking was a balance of all of the various elements. So to finalize the logo, we had Alta balance it out with multiple features of some of the earlier logo iterations and at least one new element. So now we brought back the building, showing that the program is about urban environment, but as well as keeping the trees and mountains to show that it's about the stately city, the beauty of the city. And then had travel mode depictions, and felt pretty proud of how we were able to bring in so many different travel modes. So starting from the bottom of this logo, you can see that there's a diamond indication for the HOV lane symbol that represents transit, carpooling, and vanpooling, and there's a crosswalk to represent walking and pedestrian travel. And then the building has windows that actually also look like street lane markings. And the trees double as bike sharrows, and then the mountains are depicted as well. So in spite of this logo kind of including the kitchen sink of so many different elements, we felt it's still not visually overwhelming, but rather simple looking. And I think this is due to the relatively fine lines over the white background and the simple design. And one more thing about it is that it does evoke the two contrasting styles that I talked about earlier. So it looks kind of cute and techy, but it also has that more stately beauty to it. Next slide. So with the logo complete, we can move on to the second phase of our project, which was the website redesign. And I just wanted to re-emphasize some of our objectives, and we had multiple objectives again. On the right side is a screenshot of another version of our old website that was slightly newer than the previous one that I showed you, where our IT department brought in contrast to meet accessibility needs and made it more mobile responsive. But even this iteration still had 16 menu items on the homepage and was somewhat visually overwhelming. So we definitely wanted to address that. And also we wanted to improve the copy through having professional copywriting done for the first time on our website, so that it would be streamlined in both the page structure and the text. And then one more point that we considered was we didn't want to have too much photography because photos are hard to maintain. So the design wasn't really based on a photographic element. We used just basic graphics for a cleaner approach. Next slide. So Alta got going on building the website to meet these objectives. And in addition to the new structure they worked on with fewer menu items and pages, on this particular slide I wanted to hone in on the copy changes. So in the left column, that's our earliest iteration, there is way too much text. So by the way, this is from our bike mode page, and it's at the top of the page where we're introducing the person to the idea of using this travel mode. So the left just has way too many words for someone to kind of hone in on what we're getting at. The middle column represents an interim effort that we made to shorten the text in 2017, and it definitely is better, but interestingly, it's still not quite as good as getting the message across as the rightmost column that was done by the professional copywriter who is a subcontractor to Alta. So this rightmost column is more readable and able to be grasped, even though it is actually slightly longer just by how it is worded. And the rightmost column is also more descriptive of what the website provides. Next slide. So I also wanted to talk about what we retained. I feel like as a client, we're kind of asking a lot of Alta that we wanted to include a whole lot of things on our website, but still have it be streamlined. So we did want to have a dynamic carousel on the homepage with images of our current activities, and we also wanted to have an about statement so that people going on the site wouldn't be wondering what the site is about. And so that became the first carousel image that would always pop up. We also had sections for transportation news, longer-term road closures, which we called travel notices, and partner programs, which we called featured programs for partner TDM programs. We did have multiple menu levels. We had a menu for the different travel modes. We had a menu for our 3 different audience segments, and we had a menu for our trip logging rewards program, and we definitely wanted to retain those. We did have descriptive links, which required a little bit more words, but for instance, instead of just go here, we would say go to form or something that would tell the person where they're going if they clicked. And then we had extensive business program content. So on the right of this slide is a screenshot from our business homepage. And you can see that we have an extra layer here where we describe the topic briefly, and then you can click through to get to the wordiness, because we did require a lot of words because there are a lot of details about our business outreach programs. And then we added accessibility information to the website about using different transportation modes if you have various accessibility needs. And so that actually added a little bit of content, but we felt that was important. Next slide. So this is my reveal of our new website. And the page structure has been streamlined as reflected in fewer menu items. We have 10 menu items now instead of the previous 16 through some consolidation, but it actually seems like even fewer than that because of the design treatment, because of the good hierarchy between the different menus that are provided, and an overall lightness to the design. We do have that about blurb, the main thing that hits you on the left about what the site is about. It's about transportation options. And it is overall simple and clean with lots of space around the elements. And you can see it for yourself if you want to go to our website, which is chooseyourwaybellevue.org. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Casey for questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you, all three of you, for excellent presentation. We do have some questions that have been asked already, and I just want to remind folks, if you do have a question for any of our panelists this afternoon, please go ahead and type it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get as many questions answered before the end of the hour. The first one I'm going to steer towards Anna from your talk at the beginning. You mentioned there were two different groups kind of with the same name. And so this question is, does Get There Southwest Washington and Get There Oregon share data? I.e., is someone could find a match between the two sites seamlessly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So both of the Southwest Oregon and Washington use Riot Amigos as the platform. And you know, I would actually have to defer to our administrator here to confirm that for sure in terms of the inner workings of that. But I know a lot of care has been taken to be clear about which program you are participating in. So if possible, I can just follow up with that after the webinar.
Yeah, we'll ask that person to follow up with you. Absolutely. And I think you just actually kind of touched upon it, but I don't know if you can elaborate any further, Kira, but this next question, panelists wanted to know what website host do you use? They really liked the way the site looked.
Well, Anna's team actually developed the website for us. We hosted on GoDaddy.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. This next question for Kate. Kate, you may have touched upon it a little bit. Are your logos and brands on a mobile app? This group is trying to develop a mobile app, but need more information on how other organizations set up their mobile sites. And currently, our rideshare is on our internal site, but we would like a mobile app for our field locations participants to easily look up information while away from the office.
So we don't currently have a mobile app for our program. Our website is, I would say, very much mobile optimized. And so you could definitely look on your mobile device and see how it appears on there. But at this point, we don't actually have an app.
Okay, and this next question is both for you, Kira and Kate. This person wanted to know, how are each of your programs funded, you know, in regards to whether it's federal, state, local, or a combination?
This is Kira, I can touch on that a little bit about Linking Tahoe. So right now, our program, both Linking Tahoe, all the work that we do, distributing brochures, printing, all of that is funded through our Metropolitan Planning Organization overall work program, which is primarily federal planning dollars. And then Commute Tahoe right now is also funded through our overall work program. You know, I think in the future we're planning on partnering more with our local transportation management associations to kind of get them to take over portions of these programs or help us implement portions of these programs. And so their funding could come from, you know, membership dues and maybe local jurisdictions. But yeah, that's where ours comes from for the time being.
And this is Kate, and our program is funded by all of the above. And it's different It's mostly grant funded, different grants at different times, some federal, some state, and the grants have pretty much been passed through to the city through larger agencies, so either through the state or through the county, which is actually the transit agency. They do a lot of TDM work here where they work on regional TDM grant programs and also pass the money through to the local jurisdictions. And then part of it is locally funded, but that's the more minor part. The ongoing hosting and maintenance of the site is all taken care of by our City of Bellevue internal IT department, and the city also expends local funds to do community outreach and sponsoring of events to promote our TDM brand locally.
Excellent, thank you. And I know you touched upon this, but for Kira and Kate a little bit, someone was asking, or a few people here, do all of your websites programs use Ride Amigos as your back-end matching program?
I can go first. So we do not. We use the Rideshare Online program that is owned by the state of Washington, and that is regional, several states around Washington as well. And that is free to use for various jurisdictions. So it works well for us.
Yeah, and this is Kira. So right now, we actually are not using any sort of software, any sort of trip planning software on our website. So our website right now just links out to the local transit website, to their schedules, or it will link out to the regional bike map that we have. That is something we're planning on doing in the future. One of the challenges that we have at Tahoe is many of the platforms that exist right now are really geared towards commuters and getting people in cars together and to carpool. And we just don't really have that problem up here. Our problem is our congestion is really driven by visitor travel, and so we're kind of shopping around to look for something that would maybe be geared more towards targeting the visitor, targeting people that are coming into the basin from some of those drive-up markets, rather than carpool matching. But that is something we plan to do in the future.
Okay, great. Kate, I know you touched upon this, but Kara, if you want to chime in a little bit too, regarding the mobile app. Another question was asked, if you don't have one, do you envision that as a next step for growth for you all? What are your next steps in terms of expanding that a little bit?
This is Kate. So I do think it could be a next step for a TDM program, and could be a way to, I think, bring in new audience members if you could have the feasibility to combine the informational elements with maybe the trip logging and ride matching elements that all could be accessed through a central portal that is on a mobile device. So I definitely think there's merit to the idea, but we don't have actual plans to do that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is Kira. So like the Bellevue website, our Linking Tahoe site is also, it also works with mobile devices, and it's optimized for mobile use, but we don't have an app yet. I think, when eventually we want to incorporate some sort of trip planning software into our Linking Tahoe website. And at that time, whenever we move forward with that, we would likely build an app that would be white labeled with our Linking Tahoe brand.
Okay. This next question, again, for any of you ladies who'd like to chime in a little more specific here. I don't believe any of you, I'm not sure. Did any of your programs consider creating a website in-house using a web builder like a Squarespace or Wix? And if so, can you elaborate on the factors that you considered? Did any of you?
This is Kate. So I just wanted to mention our website uses Drupal as a platform, and
Okay.
we find that to work very well, to be very intuitive and it was easy to create it in a way that non-technical people can update the website well. I don't really know much about those other programs that you mentioned. I can mention that just the way that our city is run, it's kind of difficult to get on IT's to-do list for our internal IT department because they're so busy with so many other things. So it worked best to have an external designer for our site.
And this is Anna, and I can chime in too and say that, we did help with we created the website for Tahoe as well, and we used WordPress with the intention of it being really easy for the client to then update and manage going forward. So the design was something that we created using WordPress as the background, but it's been maintained by them.
Excellent. Okay. And then the next question, again, Kira, Kate, do any of these programs also outreach to employers, residences, and hospitality industries? That has been our struggle here in DC, is redesigning a website that appeals to all. It seems like the sites are developed and targeted towards commuters and general public. Can you expand?
Go ahead, Kira. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Kira. I would say I think our website was envisioned to primarily target visitors, and so we had our brochure, which was kind of a complimentary hard copy material that we distributed that pushed people to the website, and we primarily distributed brochures to hotels and recreation sites because that's where our target audiences were, and so I think the way that our brand was developed to look kind of catchy and fun is appealing to visitors, and we're definitely seeing use from visitors on our website. That's a struggle for us too, though, and I think, yeah, I mean, our program is primarily geared towards visitors.
Yeah, so this is Kate. So we have an extensive business side to our website, as I kind of briefly alluded to, but in our city and our region, the TDM outreach to businesses is really big in terms of their employee commutes, as well as so employers as well as property managers and the commutes of employees traveling to their work sites, and their regulatory aspects in terms of our state of Washington commute trip reduction law, as well as our building transportation management program regulations. And then we provide information assisting those entities with complying with those laws, as well as the smaller businesses that are not subject to the regulations, but that we want to encourage to provide commute options for their employees. It's a really huge part of our program because we get a lot of bang for our buck working with the employers, and then they touch all those employees. So we have a lot of content on our website that you can see that is about that, and it is part of our overall consideration, being a major job center, having kind of a business-like look to our brand, I would say was part of our overall consideration in developing the brand. With regard to hospitality in particular, we have done outreach to hospitality workers. I'm not sure if that was a question, but that is an audience segment that they tend to be lower paid and need to travel longer distances, and with shifts it can be hard for them to use transit. So it's definitely a population that we have reached out to from time to time to try to assist with their commuting, and we would roll that into just our existing pages to businesses and to individuals and commuters.
Okay, great. We have one more question here we'll try to get answered just before the top of the hour. This next question, a great way to end it all here. Have you seen immediate results from rebranding the logos and or your website? And I'll start with you, Kira. I'll let you kind of finish things off here a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so we definitely are seeing people, right after we distributed brochures, we see a spike in our visitation to the website. So we think that that's working pretty well, and we put out brochures twice a year, once at the beginning of summer and once at the beginning of winter, and so that trend has continued. We haven't really gotten Commute Tahoe off the ground just yet, but generally we do think our Linking Tahoe brand is reaching people more so than we had ever seen before.
So this is Kate, and so we already had a really robust program, and so we were just changing kind of the look of what you see when you go to our program. So it's not like we saw a big bump because the website looks nicer. A lot of people find us because they search for bus in Bellevue and they end up on our site. But we feel good about our program now. Like, it looks very professional and up to date, and like we're a really super with it organization, and so you can trust what we have to say, that you know, we have our finger on the pulse and that we can be helpful to you. So I think that's our main benefit, is once you get there, we feel like we leave a good impression.
Excellent. Anna, anything else to add?
Well, I think ours was a little bit different for Get There Oregon, because we did transition to a new name as well. So we feel like we had a good response, and you know, our first step was really getting those folks that were familiar with the old platform and the old name to feel comfortable with the new platform and start to connect with that new name. So we were really excited with the results that we had in the launch in the first year, and are really looking forward to the second year too, where we can start to try to expand the reach to some new users as well.
Excellent. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of our panelists today as we hit the top of the hour. This was an excellent presentation. We appreciate you taking the time to present to the members here of ACT. And I want to thank all of our attendees too for participating today. We truly appreciate it, and we hope that you would join us next month. New date, Tuesday, March 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, entitled Blockchain and Transportation, Protection, Privacy, and Payments. Thank you all again, and we hope to have a great rest of your week. Thank you. Bye-bye.